Hey guys, Jake from 80/20 Media here. Today we're going to be talking about cold air intake upgrades for the 7.3 Powerstroke. Right here, I've got my F350 with the 7.3. We've got our boosted performance cold air intake on it. And so we're gonna go ahead and talk a little bit about the performance benefits and the reason for adding a cold air intake to your 7.3 Powerstroke. First of all, when it comes to performance modifications, if you guys check out our video on the 4 best performance modifications for the 7.3 Powerstroke, the number one thing is gonna be engine tuning. Tuning's where you're gonna get your big power gains from. That's what's really gonna optimize the efficiency of the engine and unlock all of the additional horsepower that's there, predominantly by increasing the boost of the turbocharger. Now, whether or not you're completely stock, there is a good reason to add a cold air intake. I will say from a performance and power standpoint, you're not going to quite notice huge power gains if your engine is completely stock, but you still will notice a couple of the other benefits, some things like increased fuel economy, you'll get better throttle response, faster turbo spool, and a couple other benefits like that. But really where cold air intake is extremely beneficial is when your engine's tuned and you're running above stock boost levels. When you're running above stock boost, that puts a lot of additional stress on the turbocharger, and a cold air intake is one of the best ways to reduce the stress on the turbocharger by feeding it additional airflow. A cold air intake like our boosted performance one right here outflows the factory closed box system by about 50%, and that's going to deliver a ton of extra air to the turbocharger, which is going to take stress off of the turbocharger. It's going to improve its efficiency, which is therefore going to unlock some power gains. So when you're tuned, depending on what type of tune you're running and what power levels you're running, with a cold air intake, you're going to see around 8 to 15 wheel horsepower and 15 to 25 wheel torque power gains. And so you get pretty good power gains out of an intake when you're tuned. And you also get all of the other benefits that I've talked about, like improved throttle response, faster turbo spool. You get a more efficient turbocharger by taking stress off of it, which is going to help the turbocharger to run a little bit cooler. And so you will see minor decreases in your engine temps and your EGTs. And then in addition to that, the increased air density is going to allow for some small 1 to 2 mile per gallon fuel economy gains. On this truck right here, I get on average probably about 1 mile per gallon better. And I do a little bit of highway and a little bit of city driving here. So the intake pays for itself over time just with the fuel economy gains that you're getting out of it. Overall, this is probably the second modification that I recommend for any 7.3 Powerstroke after you add tuning to it. And even if you aren't planning on tuning it, you're still going to get a little bit of power. You're going to get the fuel economy benefits and all of the other things that we discussed. So overall, it is a great modification. Now, when it comes to intake upgrades, there are 2 different routes that you can go. This is our boosted performance intake. This is a 4-inch intake with a large 11-inch S&B open air filter. The other route that you can go is getting a closed box intake system, which you'll see with something like Banks Power or S&B, where the air filter sits within an enclosed box right here. We generally only recommend and only sell open air intakes. Open air intakes significantly outflow the closed box intakes because the box that you put around the filter creates additional restriction. Whereas this one outflows the factory intake by about 50%, a closed box intake is only going to outflow the factory intake by about 30%. You're going to get better power gains from this, you're going to get better fuel economy gains, and overall all of the benefits are going to be amplified because we are getting all of that extra airflow going to the turbocharger. Now, a lot of people will tell you that an open air intake is going to draw in significantly hotter air than a closed box intake will. This will probably draw in air that's maybe 2 to 3 degrees warmer than it would if it were a closed box system, but this is a turbocharged vehicle and it has an intercooler on it. And so the hotter air temperatures really don't matter because the temperature of the air when it enters the engine is going to be the same regardless, because the intercoolers on these engines are capable of handling that additional airflow and power and cooling it down, even though it is going to start off just slightly hotter. In our opinion, the performance benefits of the open air intake outweigh any of the downsides to it. I don't believe that there's really that big of a difference between the closed block intake air temperatures, especially after they go through the intercooler and enter into the engine. So we recommend open air filters just because they're going to provide bigger power gains, more performance, and that's what we're all about here at Boosted Performance, and that's what I wanted out of my 7.3 Powerstroke right here. Anyways, guys, If you're looking to improve the performance of your 7.3, head on over to Boosted Performance. We sell these intakes for $249. It is an extremely simple DIY installation. It's got everything that you need there, and we also have a number of other performance upgrades, which we're going to do some videos on here shortly with things like intercoolers, exhaust systems, and so forth. So that's it on the benefits of intake upgrades for the 7.3. Thanks guys, go ahead and click the like button and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you for our next video on the 7.3.